Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the D-Shift podcast. And today I have a guest that you are going to love because I have so enjoyed having a conversation with her in the past. So Magdalena Raj is a high impact coach, speaker, author, and energy shifter. She partners with successful but stressed high achievers. Does that sound like anybody in the audience here? Seeking more from their life and no longer willing to do it at the expense of their life. And I love this whole concept. With a blend of neuroscience, laser strategies, and energy work, her coaching clients reclaim the time, energy, and balance they need to make the impact they want. And like I said, I just love the whole concept of this. So Magdalena, welcome.
Thank you. I am thrilled to be here. And I'm just so glad we're going to have the time and to chat today, Marty, because I enjoyed our conversation we had before as well. And I love the space that you play in and how important that is. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, thank you. And likewise. So Magdalena, what got you into this area? Because I know you didn't, come out of high school and go, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I want to do. How did you get here? I know it's a bit of a journey, right?
Yeah, no, actually I started in grammar school. That's what I decided. Doesn't every little kid go, I want to be a coach. That's what I want to do. It's a checkered story. But I think at different inflection points in my life, I got really interested in what makes a difference or what makes a shift. And probably one of the biggest areas was after my divorce, when I was going through that. And I think some of your listeners are in that space. And, probably everybody has their on the floor in the bathroom moment at some point. And you're thinking, where do I even go from here? And I had a young daughter. So, there's a little 2-year-old that needs you. So you get up and you go. And at that moment, when you're making those shifts and you go, all right, what's the next step? And sometimes it's just putting one foot in front of the other. You don't always look at how you're doing it. You kind of make it happen. Mm-hmm. And you reach back into your toolkit of what you had before. And, for me, sometimes you look at it and you're like, well, there was life then, there's life here. Now I'm going forward. What does that even look like? And the runway is a bit shorter and the trajectory is a bit higher. And when it happened, it just so happened that the company I worked for decided to declare bankruptcy. So it was like there was no spouse, no income, no severance, no health care, no 401k, no stock, all the stuff that you invest into is gone. So you leap in and you pull, you reach on those skills you have in the background that you have, but you're not always paying attention to how you're doing it. Because
right.
You just say, there's commitments I made. I want these things to happen. I'm going to go there for it. And there's a point where when you make investments in yourself, it's great, but there's a point where it shifts to a borrowing, and you borrow on your tomorrow to make the success of today. And I think at the time I didn't understand that fully. I just knew I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I was trying to do it all. I, wanted to make these certain things happen. And so, I wanted my daughter to get out of college. I want to be debt free. I wanted this, I want that, right? And you throw yourself into it. And in the course of that, I didn't realize too that I had a lot of those tendencies that fall into the characteristics of a high achiever. Now, hard worker, yeah, sign me up, check that box. I'm all over that one. That's me, determined, diligent, going to make it happen. Oh, okay, we're going to take that challenge on. You love a challenge, you love a puzzle, you're going to make it happen. And it wasn't until later when I was saying, I got to solve this because this is just not the way to go through life, because you can get exhausted. You're not remembering things because you're not anchoring the memory, right? You're just kind of going to the next thing. And that was one of the things I committed to was, you've hit these different inflection points and you've always said, I'm interested in this. I want to know about it. And there's a point where just reading a book isn't going to do it,
Right.
And even though I'm a big DIYer, Home Depot was not helping me with this one.
Yeah.
So, there's a point. So, um, so that's when I really decided what was it I loved about the career that I had, which was a corporate career, different industries, actually different areas of the business, from sales and carrying a bag to technology and running tech. But it was really the development of the people and seeing how people went to their next stage in their life and where they were going in their career. So it's like, how do you put all that together? And I'm like, let me look at this. And when I did it, then I started reading about this high achiever thing. And I thought, well, I don't run the country, and I'm not building ships to go to Mars to, scoot from whatever problems we've created. So again, that hard worker works, but the high achiever. And when I read about it, you get some of that perfectionistic things, you get some of that imposter syndrome, you get all these other things. And I thought, God, could we do it with greater ease? Like, what could change that makes this different, that you're not borrowing on your tomorrow? Because I'm on the other side of that, and I can look back and I thought, God, I want to be the person for someone else that I didn't have then to ask those
Right.
questions, kind of work
Right.
it through. And you can't see your own blind spots. So that's kind of what led me to it. And the passion around it, but also it's a privilege, because if I get to my why, is to like kind of a bigger why, is that I'm really interested in the ripples. I want the ripple effect to shift. And by that I mean the interactions, the human interactions that we have every day, they can either uplift us or they can, man, tear us apart.
Right.
And I think in this world, how we're handling those, from the person who cuts you off on the road and how you respond, to if your child's talking to you and you're like, honey, just a minute, just a minute, just a minute, like what's happening in those interactions, to the person that sits in a meeting and maybe they either support you or there's some kind of comment that tears somebody down. There's such a ripple, because when you step out of that moment, you take it somewhere else. They take it somewhere else. And it's like, how do you get to show up as your best self?
Yeah.
Because people are brilliant and they're getting taken out of that, and we need their brilliance.
Right.
Take
Right.
on the world so maybe we don't have to go to Mars. Mars is for exploration, but it's not because we want to ditch everything and leave it behind, in our disposable society.
Right.
That's kind of what got me there. That was a bit long-winded, but I hope
No,
it
no,
kind of
no, that was
point.
good. And, when you were talking about that, reaching back into your toolkit when you're on, because I think all of us have gone through that on the bathroom floor. I can't deal with this. This is whether it's through divorce or losing a job through no fault of your own or whatever it may be. There's always those, or the death of a loved one or a parent or something. There's always these things that are going on. And you said reaching back in your toolkit. And there's a book that I read a long time ago. What got you here won't get you there. It's by Marshall. I can't think.
Goldsmith and Goldman.
Oh, yes, yes. Goldsmith, Goldstein.
I'm blanking on it right now.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. But it's what got you.
Marshall
What got
Goldman.
you here won't get you there. And it basically says, all the tools that have got us to wherever we are in life are not the tools that we're going to need to go from here to there. Like from point now to point future. We have to look at what's effective, what's not effective. And I loved how you talked about blind spots, because we all have this sense of, I'm doing so good in this area of my life, and everybody else is looking at us and going like, what the hell are you thinking? Like, what's going on for you? Can you talk a little bit more about how high achievers, because I know that's who we're talking about. Maybe let's talk about those characteristics that, if you're sitting here thinking, okay, am I a hard worker or a high achiever? Can you maybe share a little bit with what the difference is in your perspective? And then, well, let's just start with that.
Sure. I love that people don't self-select always into that. And when I say that, then they start to think, oh, that's not me. And I go, you know what? You're sitting here listening to a podcast. Darn well is you. Because you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to take it to another level, and you want to do well at it. So then kind of the dark sides of it is, that as I said, there's the perfectionism that can come into it. There's that imposter syndrome that can sit with it. There's sometimes the need for getting either affirmation, or a lot of times it's recognition too for the effort that's been made. There's a tendency to want to stick with it no matter what. Like, I can take that hill, right? So those are the things that drive us. And we don't, and I said, for me, I would have never picked that until I realized this at least gives me an opportunity to ask some people some questions and go, do you think that could be you? Do you think it? And then if you throw in a dose of multi-passionate people, because a lot of times that plays in there too. It's like, yeah, I'll do it. Why? Because I can.
Right.
So your high achiever can also be the one that when something's sitting there on the table and no one wants to pick it up and do it, what I call it the dead fish syndrome. A dead fish laying on the table is not going to smell better or get better as time goes on. And more and more, but everybody sits there and they're more than willing to look at it, right? And you want to pick up the high achiever in the room, they're the person that goes, I'll just get it done. Just give me
Right.
it. Because it's like, why are we even going around on this thing? I want to get to the next thing. I want to do something else. I want to bring something more to it. Yeah. If that's ever been you,
So
hold a minute.
do you see high achievers as um, not only taking on the projects that nobody else wants, but maybe way overbooking or
Oh yeah.
way over assuming what they can actually accomplish? Do you,
Yeah. Yeah. They'll oversubscribe. They belong to what I call the doing it all club. And the thing is, they're actually good at it.
right.
It's like multitasking that we all know that our brain really doesn't multitask, right? But what it does is it swaps in and out really quickly. There's overhead to that. And then you get the statement of, well, women actually, they multitask better than men. Yay, so we can take a banner and a badge for that. But you know what? When we multitask, why do we multitask? Do we multitask because we go, oh, all right, I'm going to get all of this done, and then I'm going to sit in the lounge chair, and I'm going to say, oh, Cabana Boy, bring me the pina colada because I've saved all this time. No, we use the time to go do what?
More stuff.
Right? Exactly. So the thing is, though, as your brain is taking on all of that work, you start to hit one of the things that I hear a lot from people is that, I could do it if I just had the time. Or
Yeah.
I could do it if I had some more energy. I'm just pulled at all ends, right? If I had more balance, I could make it happen. So there's still that drive to make it happen. And they go like, these are the things I don't have. So let's look at why not, right? If you're not getting, say, the sleep at night, if you're not giving yourself the grace after you've done the big multitasking thing to give that window, then you're borrowing on your tomorrow. You
Right.
are not investing in yourself anymore. Right? Where does it take you and what does it do? And so, yes, sometimes high achievers will go to the point of burnout, and that's really where they get to because they're going to keep going. And there's a point too where they will, as they pick up those other things other people may not want to do, or they take the hill somebody else doesn't want to, and they do that work effort in there, they will see and solve things that other people won't even know exist. They will clear those things up and do it. So someone looks and it's kind of like looking at that iceberg, right? They go, oh, look at all of this progress. The person's like, you have no idea. I started down here because, I had to make the ice under the bottom of the iceberg before we could get to that point. But someone else doesn't even see that and
Right.
know that it's there. So all that energy and all that effort went into that. And then sometimes there's not always a balanced acknowledgement of that. And high achievers can also go from a growth mode when they're really, really stressed. They go to protection mode,
Sure.
right? And then how do you move in that? Because they excel, they bring their best self in growth mode when they are given the environment that helps them support them. And that's something that, again, they don't always think about is, you know what? Am I doing everything for the environment? Is this environment really supporting me? And is it fair to me?
You
Is
know,
this right?
I never thought about that before. And I always try to work with my clients about, because they're going through a divorce. And so one of the things we try to look at is where was there maybe not a balance in the relationship and how can we address this in like a co-parenting relationship moving forward so this doesn't come up. But I'm wondering if a lot of relationships don't struggle with this, where one person is a high achiever that is taking on everything in the relationship, and another person is kind of, I don't want to say they're coasting because maybe they're just more balanced naturally and they're not going to make all these crazy commitments to doing things that are going to stress them out. So maybe they're the healthier person in the long run if they don't balance it. But do you think that might, like those kind of dynamics, whether it's at the workplace or in in a relationship, do you think that they lead to a lot of conflict and discord, or what do you
Oh,
think?
absolutely. Absolutely. Again, because I think that as you look at kind of a broader definition around a high achiever, how they play, because they're giving so much to so many, they may not always recognize where they're drawing from. So, like when I work with my clients, we talk about, I tell them, kick the seesaw out, right? The whole week work-life balance. I can't stand that thing. It's a
Idea.
binary
Yeah.
situation. It's got to
Yeah.
go. So we talk about 12 dimensions of life. And it's like, now let's look at that and see what's going on in those other ones. Are you getting the enrichment you need? So you bring, and again, the concept of best self is kind of an interesting one, but I like it because it really says, are you able to bring your skills and your gifts into every situation? You know, we get to the point where sometimes where we want to disconnect so badly, but we're craving connection at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
You can't let go of what's going on here at work, so you can't really be present over here because your brain's still solving problems. It's still wired for that. And you kind of have to get into this place of mental fitness and kind of say, let's rewire some of that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it can, because where does that put the other person in the situation? Not to say they don't have their own set of issues, but
Sure.
it can drive polarization and drive dynamics and different things too as well. Yeah,
And I know
absolutely.
that I know that a lot of people that listen to this podcast have heard other guests talk about something like a wheel of life, where people get to
Mhm.
look at, and I know that's not as sophisticated as your 12 pillars, I'm sure, but it gives people a quick visual. You know, am I spending all of my energy in my professional, and I've got no social activities and no,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
home life is in the toilet, but I'm doing really good at work and I'm really happy about that. And that's what you're talking about, drawing from one part of your life to fill the other. Is that?
Exactly. You have to replenish. And yeah, it's a wheel of life that I use, but I've kind of expanded it to 12 different dimensions because I think it really goes around, where do you have your income, but also be where you feel your achievement and you're getting your reward mechanism from. And if that's the only one where you're feeling that reward,
Right.
sometimes it's a quicker reward result answer
Right.
than you're growing up and your child's not doing well at something. Well, 10 years from now, they may be doing fabulous, but right now, you're primed over here all day long on the quick response, on the, are we getting it? Are we, even if it's a long project, like, did we hit this milestone? Are we going on with that milestone? That doesn't play the same in interpersonal relationships, right? And where that goes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the dance. And I come down to three areas that are really critical, I think, and that make the difference. And one is, especially when someone's coming off a divorce or some other major shift in life, is getting back to who you are. And even if you're not, and you're just sitting there going, it's like, who am I? We carry around a vision sometimes. Sometimes it's 10 years old, it's 20 years old. We think that's that, right? And then there's the person that looks at us and they have a view of who we are. Then there's future us we're moving towards, right? So you get really clear on who you are, your values, who you are, where you want to go, and how you want to show up along the way. That's kind of what I think of as your core. And it has to be a vibrant core, meaning that you're really living it, you're being it. So your values and your vibrancy, what makes you vibrant, understanding that. So we don't always take that look back at ourselves. And it's when you have an inflection point, there's a little more flexibility. It is a fabulous time to take that look.
Yeah.
Then the next thing is, what is the culture that you live in? Now, it's not just the people you surround yourself with, but what's the culture, especially if you have kids? What do you want to raise? What's the culture, your personal culture? So if you have a culture of achievement, did you get the grade? Did you get the A? Did you do well in school? Did you do that? That's great. But do you also have a culture of celebration? A lot of times high achievers don't celebrate because they're like, well, I get to get the big win. I celebrate when the big win comes.
Right.
And then by the time they get there, they're going, yeah, but my brain's over there already. The pause and the celebrate. And going into that is, do you have a culture of failure? Is failure supported? Maybe you want to change and call it exploration, but do you support that because you're learning as you grow? All right, that didn't work out, but hey, yeah, you learned that. You got that. So do you have a culture of innovation? That happened. how can we get out of that? I remember my daughter, when she was little one time, she goes, "That's okay, mommy, I will find a way." And I was like, oh my God, something sunk in there. Because I kept saying that to myself, as I'm going through, I will find a way.
Right.
So, all right, good. But I may have been doing that high achiever thing again. But anyway, I have a list of those that we go through to say, what's that culture that supports that? And you really is a culture. And a culture is something you live. It's the habits and the behaviors. When you sit at dinner, what do you talk about? Do you sit together at dinner? Well, how are you supporting the things that are important within that? And then the last part, and that's an intentional culture. So you have a vibrant core and intentional culture. And the last one is dynamic alignment. And that's where the mental fitness piece comes in. And I'm working in positive intelligence. That's kind of where the neuroscience comes in, where you do the fitness piece the same way you would exercise anything else. We talk about the grooves in the brain, right? But if you want to shift that, you actually got to do that and practice it, so that that road that you thought can now become a broken down highway. And over here, you're now speeding along.
Yeah.
And that's a practice, and it's understanding that, till you make the new road through the marsh, it's going to be bumpy and your tires are going to get stuck till you get the asphalt down or whatever. And so those are the three things I think are so important.
And I think that's a great summary. I normally ask people a question to summarize, but I think that was a perfect one. So, you have shared such a wealth of knowledge, and I just love your conversations because they're always chock full of practical information and things that people can relate to. So what's the best way if somebody wants to learn more about what you do or get in touch with you to work with them, what's the best way to reach out to you?
So there's, I have a download for folks, and it's what I call primers, if you will. Little things that help you mentally prime, things you can do in the morning, things you can do at night, things maybe during the day that help you kind of get back to, how can I bring my best self into this situation? The person I want to be, not someone's trying to force me to be, right?
Right.
So they can have a download and show up as you.com.
Okay. And I will make sure that the information for the download and all the information about Magdalena's website is all in the show notes. And I just want to thank you so much for being here. I so enjoyed these conversations with you. So looking forward to grabbing your download, because I'm going to do it, and I'm going to work on myself a little bit too. So thank you so much for this. And I want to thank everybody for listening into the D Shift. And don't forget to tune in again next Tuesday for another episode. Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.